Okay, so let's start by coding in Python. I hope you're excited because this will be your first Python code, or at least I hope so, if you picked up this course without any programming knowledge. So let's do it. As we've seen, Python is able to interpret this 2 plus 2 as 4. So it is able to do this mathematical operation and return 4. Now Python respects all mathematical rules that we know, and that's really cool because it will give us a lot of flexibility, and we'll probably work around with numbers in a lot of programs or software pieces that we develop. And mostly I'll avoid writing prints because I'll only do one instruction per cell, but in the meantime there might be some instructions where I have the print, others where I don't. Don't worry about it because practically when we are teaching and working with cells, they are exactly the same thing, at least if we only do one line per each cell, which is something that I'm going to do here in most of the lectures, except the more advanced ones. So for instance, let's go and see 16 plus 23 as an example. Here we have 39. This is, of course, adding two numbers. It's working just fine. If we go to 17 plus 23, we have 40. This is something that's expected and Python works with. Now, as we have the adding or summing two numbers, we also have subtraction with the minus symbol. Okay, so with this symbol, if I do 10 minus 5 and run this code, I'll have 5. So these are two of the most basic operators. Now, there are other mathematical operations that we know, of course, such as the multiplication or the division, right? So the multiplication is done with this star or asterisk sign. If I do 5 asterisk 2 and run this code, I'll have 10 in the output. And for division, super simple, 10 divided with this bar lean to the right by 2, and I'll have as a return 5. Notice something interesting, which is the 5 times 2 return 10, and the 10 divided by 2 return 5.0. Why .0? Because the division operator returns a float number, so a number with a decimal point. Even though 10 divided by 2 gives an integer, the default type that Python returns is this 5.0. Don't worry about this because we'll get there in exploring these data types such as floats, integers, strings, all that. Just be mindful that these two operators return two types of numbers. First, it returns a 10, so not a 10.0, it returns a 10 because it's an integer data type, and then the 10 divided by 2 return the 5.0, which is a float data type that will have some consequences, as we will see in the future. Now, you can also type float numbers, for example, 10 plus 2.5. This will, of course, yield 12.5. And this is again a float number or a float data type because of the dot that you see in there. If you don't see any dot, then you are dealing with the integer numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. If you are seeing the point, you are dealing with infinitesimal, or at least with theoretically infinitesimal numbers that can be stored until the smallest piece possible. For example, 12.55555. For example, if I divide 10 by 3, I'll have this 3.33333, something that's then rounded until here. And these are the decimal places of this number. Again, don't worry too much, we'll get here in the meantime. Okay, so another important rule from mathematics, right? I'm not going to go too deep into maths here, don't worry, because this is a course focused on programming, is that we can have, for example, precedences or operator precedence, where there's a certain order of operations in maths, right? For example, if I have 10 plus 2 times 5, I know that multiplication and division comes first, then adding numbers and subtracting. So I'm expecting that 2 times 5 is done first. And if I run this, I'll have exactly that. 2 times 5 equals to 10, plus 10 equals to 20. Now, of course, we know how to override this in mathematical equations or in mathematical expressions. If I copy this here, of course, I can also copy code from one cell to the other. This is important. We can override it with parentheses, right? I can go here and put parentheses around this mathematical expression. At least we are expecting that this is the behavior. Let's see. And it is exactly that behavior. So when I put parentheses around operators, I'm basically overriding the order of that operation. So basically the rules of multiplication and division get overridden by these parentheses. Okay, this works exactly like we know in mathematical or common mathematical expressions. Okay, that's it for basic calculator methods here in Python. Let's do a break. We'll return in the next lecture where we'll deal with two concepts. How can we apply, for example, the absolute of a number, where the absolute, we know that the absolute of a number is like minus 10 should be 10. It's removing the negative signs from numbers, basically. How can we do that here in Python, and is it possible for us to do that with something? Let's see, and also we'll encounter our first error, which is, of course, one of the most painful stuff that we have here in Python, which means our code has some type of issue. That's what we'll see in the next lecture. I'll see you there.